All right, we are talking about the cells.
When Mr. I'm coming.
We're talking about the cells and the and microscopic organisms. Okay. And so we're gonna learn more about that. And what that looks like. All right, we're not gonna read all 4 sections today because there's 4 parts to chapter 11. We're doing all of chapter 11 today. Well, you guys have a week to do chapter 11. There's no science experiment. It's just the 4 chapters or parts of the chapter. All right. So let's get started and we'll go look through it bit by bit.
Instead, I don't have my book right now on the phone.
Not good. All right, cell, okay?
Yeah, that's not
Our
good.
body is made up of cells, all right? Cells are microscopic organisms that we can't see, but they're there, all right? You're made up of a bunch of cells. I don't even know how many cells, okay? Structures that are easily seen by the unaided eye are macroscopic, and those that need a microscope are microscopic. So like bacteria and all that stuff, yeah, those are microscopic, okay? When we take a closer look at the macroscopic organisms around us, we find that they are made up of cells. Those are the smallest living units of livable things. Everything that's living is made up of cells, all right? So we're gonna take a look at what exactly that means, okay? Come on, baby. All right. So this is cell membrane. I don't really care about that right now. We're gonna move on. So we can look at the cell, okay? This is the structure of the cell. At the center of a cell is the nucleus, okay? In the nucleus, we have the envelope, the nucleolus, the chromatin, and then other parts of the shell are the vacuoli, organelles, and the cell membrane. The cell membrane is the shell of the cell, okay? Then we have mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. So cells that require more energy will have more mitochondria. We're gonna learn more about those. Cytoplasm, and this is what DNA looks like, all right? And we have DNA in our cells. You're made of DNA, as we know. Joseph, the camera. I wish we had a microscope. Maybe next year and get a microscope. All right. So
yeah, next year.
Experiment with microscopes. And what you can do is look up in Google, okay, and YouTube, and you can look at videos of microscopes and what it looks like, all right? Then we have a plant cell, all right? Plant cells don't look too different from human cells or stuff like that. They still have a nucleus, they have a cell wall, all right? But they have more stuff like a chloroplast and stuff like that, okay? But that is what the plant parts of a plant cell look like, all right? I wish we could have looked at that. All right, that's the first one. Then we have genetics, all right? Genetics, which is like things that come from previous people. For example, the genetics of a dog and stuff like that. The genetics of, like your genes, all right? For example, your hair color, all right? You'll get it from your parents, all right? So if your parents have brown hair, you're not gonna come out with blonde hair or blue hair, okay? It follows genetics. That's why we look like our parents, because it follows genetics, all right? And so it looks identical. That's why, like, when you have two dogs of the same race, when they reproduce, then they will look the same. They're not gonna look like a way bigger or way smaller. They'll look the same, right? Then there's asexual reproduction, which is when they do it by themselves. And then there's regular sexual reproduction, which requires egg and a sperm, all right? So the male and the female. Sorry. Let's keep going. All right, and so what happens when in reproduction is the transfer of genetic information. Then genetic information is like the code, all right? The information that helps. For example, it's like a note, all right? If I copy what's on a note, that next paper is gonna have the exact same thing that I wrote down, all right? So you're just copying information. So that's what reproduction does. It copies information. So in the DNA, for example, if there's brown hair, brown eyes from your parents, then you guys will have brown hair and brown eyes as well, because it's just copying information from their DNA. And that's what happens in the transfer of genetic information. All right. Does that make sense? There's not going to be
Yeah.
There's not going to be anything different, all right? And so you'll look like your parents, and that's what the transfer of genetic information, all right? So if you're, and that's the same thing with diseases and stuff like that. So if there's diseases that run in your family, then those can be passed to you as well, unfortunately. It's kind of sad. All right, and then there's Gregor Mendel, okay? He was discovered much about hereditaryism as the father of genetics. So passing down from one to the next generation, I guess you could say. All right, and so the same with plants. You know, plants have the same genetic code and information. And so if you plant a flower, let's say a rose, and you take a seed from a rose, you're gonna get another rose because it's taking that information and that code and the DNA. It's gonna pass it to the same thing. And so it's going to stay a rose. It's not going to become a dandelion. It's not going to become a sunflower. It's going to stay the same. And that's what genetic information does. Maybe it's a little bit different, for example, with parents and stuff like that, because maybe you have your mom's nose, your dad's mouth, and your mom's hair, okay? You'll get the genetic information from your parents from both sides. For example, hair normally comes from your mom. The blood normally comes from your dad. And so you're just getting information from your parents' DNA, which creates you. All right, and this is going to talk about more hereditary information. Let's keep going. All right, small but significant. Now we're going to talk about different microscopic organisms like algae. Algae is usually like the green stuff you'll see in like, have you ever been to a lake or a river and you see these green stuff that's growing on rocks and it's really slimy and gross? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
That's algae, all right? And so next time you go to a river, on rocks, normally on rocks, you'll see green slimy stuff. That's algae, right? And that is microscopic organisms. And this is what it looks like. This Spirogyra is a type of green algae, and it looks like green threads. And so this is what it looks like close up, okay? Microscopic version of that. You'll see it in as clumps and stuff, but this is what it looks like close up, right? In a microscope. All right, so that's what it wants you to do. It wants you to be able to take algae, but we don't have a microscope, which is unfortunate. But you can Google it. Same as seaweed, all right? When you take a look at what it looks like close up, it'll look very different than what you see here. So we have this, right? The diatoms, all right? And so we can see that this diatomaceous earth is collected, refined, and used to manufacture such products as toothpaste, insulation, and filters. So these algae is very important. It's what animals eat. We use it. We eat it. Microscopic organisms have a lot of importance. Usually the first start of the food chain. Then we have fungi, which is mushrooms, all right? Mushrooms grow in the nighttime, and sometimes, I don't know, do you guys like mushrooms?
No.
Yeah, me neither. I think they're gross. But some of them are very poisonous. Some of them are very good for you. So don't just eat any mushroom. Make sure you know what mushroom you're eating, because some mushrooms can kill you like that. All right? So these are macroscopic. Remember, macroscopic means you can see it with your eye without having help. But still, they have some help. And so this mushrooms are used to make medicine, like penicillin. Penicillin is made from mushrooms, or these, mold, stuff like that. And so it's going to talk about different types of funguses, which is fungi. That's the plural for fungus. And so we'll learn what this is. Corn smut. This is stuff that grows on corn. call it rust on leaves, but it's another type of fungi. Fungi usually decompose dead things. And so bread, mold, fungi, it's gross. Some of them are good for you, like on cheese and stuff like that. Mildew and stuff like that. And Samuel's calling me. Give me 1 sec, you guys. All right. Let's keep going. All right. There's a lot of projects here, but we're not going to do those because it's a lot of work. One-celled wonders, different microscopic organisms, okay? And I'll give more information on microbiology, which is the study of microscopic organisms. And yeah, so we have Flagellatus. All right. Over half of the approximately 65,000 kinds of protozoa, the animal-like organisms made of a single cell. So we're multi-celled organisms, where there's some who are single-celled organisms, all right? Like plankton, they only have one cell. They are also very important because plankton is a lot of what the like fish and stuff like that eat, and that's what we eat. You know, parasites and stuff like that. See, this is euglena. And then amoeba. Have you guys ever seen amoebas? Never seen an amoeba before? Well, this is amoeba right here. Yo, there's a mosquito that's biting me and I want it to die. Okay. And so this is talking about different single-celled organisms, all right? And you'll read more about it. And this is the paramecium, which is the are certain types of single-cell organisms, and they're broken down in different groups because they're not all the same, right? So there's a paramecium. Look at, they have single-celled. All right, this is the nucleus. See up here. So this is what it looks like. I can't see this right here. All right, this is what it looks like, and then this is what it looks like in a microscope. All right. All right, and now let's see how many more pages we have here. All right, and these are just different types of single cell organisms, all right? And so we'll learn about some that can cause diseases, parasites, and so, yeah, there's a lot of these things we could not do. I'm not focusing too much on this because it's a lot of information, plus a lot of stuff isn't really important in the moment. But bacteria also. So bacteria are single-cell organisms that are useful for us and are good and bad. You know, there's some bacteria that we need, like we need bacteria in our body to break down food and stuff like that, but also bacteria that once it gets into our body, it causes sicknesses. That's why we have antibiotics. You know, it causes infections. And so these are what certain bacteria look like. There's E. coli. E. coli is one of the bacteria that's in your body. And it normally, it's not anything bad, and it's in your large intestine. But when it leaves that, it can cause problems, right? It's supposed to be in your intestine, but when it leaves, it goes to your stomach or different parts, you can get really sick, and it's not good. So if food has E. coli, you can get sick from it. That's why we want to make sure we wash a lot of our food. Otherwise, we can get very, very sick, all right? So that's general what you guys are going to be doing today. We're going to start from the beginning at the cell, and we're going to read through this first chapter, and then I'll let you guys go to finish the last three by yourselves, okay? I got good news. You don't have to do all 4 section reviews. I only want you to do section review 11.2 and 11.4, okay? If I don't get any response, I'm going to make you do all 4. Nothing.
11.2 and
11.4. Diosa gets to do only 2. Everyone else wants to do 4.
Why?
Because you're not responding. I'm talking to you. Anderson, can you hear me? Anderson, I want to give you a burger from Guacamayas.
Mister.
Oh my God. Yes, Joseph. 11.2 and 11.4 is the ones I want you guys to do.
Okay.
Mister, I don't have my book. I don't found it.
Yep,
I will try to find it.
All right, let's get started reading. All right, I'm going to read this first section, and then I'm going to let you guys read as well. All right, make sure you're paying attention, please. Luis Mario, are you there?
Yes, mister.
Very good. Anderson, you there?
Yes, mister.
All right, let's get started. The cell, a miniature marvel. Many aspects of God's living creation cannot be studied and appreciated by simply viewing them. Trying to examine nature with the unaided eyes limits man's knowledge of the structure of living things and therefore limits his understanding of the function that God has assigned to every part of each organism. Structures that are easily seen by the unaided eye are macroscopic, and those that require a microscope are microscopic. Macro means you can see it, micro means you need help. When we take a closer look at the macroscopic organisms around us, we find that they are made up of cells, all right, the smallest living things, units of all living things. Although glass was used for magnification as early as the 1200s, microscopes were not introduced into biology until the 1600s. In the 1660s, the English scientist Robert Hooke first saw the cells of cork. His descriptions were published in his work Micrographia, the first book entirely devoted on microscopic observation. After using the scientific method to observe, theorize, and experiment on cells, scientists developed the cell theory, which maintains that all living things are composed of living units called cells and of a cell products, and that all cells come from pre-existing cells. So we come from cells, we are made up of cells, and we produce more cells. For example, when your skin gets itchy and you see white flakes come off, it means it's dead skin cells. Your body is producing newer skin cells. All right? Let's have Diosa. Diosa, will you read components of the cell?
I cannot read. My glasses doesn't work anymore.
Your what?
My glasses.
Okay. Anderson, you read components of the cell.
What, mister?
Yes, you, Anderson. Get closer to your mic. I can't hear you, bud.
The cell miniature marble. That.
No. Components of the cell right here.
Yes. Component of the cell. With infinity wisdom, God designed cell to be wonderful miniature structures responsible for carrying on the process of life. Self-manufacture and transport essential materials and respond to a wide variety of stimuli. Despite their small size, cells are intricate living structures composed of complex molecules, most of which are made from a few basic types of atoms. All cells are composed of four main elements: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. These elements combine in various ways to form the four main types of compound in the cell: carbohydrate, lipids, protein, and nucleic acid. The complexity of each living cell and the tremendous variety among cells, even in the same organism, are two of the greatest wonders of creation. Selective symmetry. Biologists divide the cell into three main parts: the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. The cell membrane is a flexible, semi-permeable membrane responsible for surrounding and protecting the other part of the cell. Because the cell membrane is semi-permeable, it is highly selective, allowing only certain substances to enter or leave the cell.
All right. We're not going to focus on that. Keep reading.
Oxygen and nutrients are transported into the cell through the membrane while waste are transported out. If the membrane malfunctions, foreign substance can easily invade the inner portion of the cell, rapidly killing the cell. The workforce within the walls of the cell membrane in the largest portion of the cell, the jelly-like liquid called cytoplasm. The cytoplasm contains many organelles and dissolved chemicals performing thousands of simulational reactions. Organelles or little organs move throughout the cytoplasm to carry out complex chemical reactions that produce material needed by the cell, package materials for shipment, or transport materials, whatever needed. Most processes in the cell require energy, which is stored in the form of the chemical ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Cellular respiration in the process that combines nutrients such as sugar with oxygen to make ATP. Part of this process takes place in the cytoplasm itself, producing a small amount of ATP, but most of cellular respiration takes place in.
Right?
I continue, Mr.
Yeah. Just read.
Organelles called mitochondria. Think mitochondria, the number of mitochondria.
Mitochondria.
A mitochondria is a single cell, but typical cell that require more energy will have more mitochondria. Like this, Mr. How, Mr. Mitochondria or who?
Mitochondria.
Mitochondria.
Very
Because of their role ATP production, mitochondria are one of the most important organelles in the cell. I continue.
No, we'll stop there. Luis Mario, will you read?
Which part?
Son, you need to be paying attention, man.
Yes, which part I read, Mr.
Right here.
Product Control Center. The nucleus, which is usually at the center of the cell, is the most important part of the cell and is responsible for regulating all cell activities. The
Nucleus.
nucleus is often called the control center of the cell because it organizes the various functions of the organelles. The nucleus is surrounded by the semi-permeable
Permeable.
knuckle, knuckle, knuck- knuck- I don't know how to,
Nuclear envelope.
nuclear envelope, which separates the nucleus from the rest of the cell and monitors the substance that can pass into the nucleus. Inside the nucleus are one or more nucleoli, which help assemble certain organelles. Also, which the nucleus is the substance called DNA, which stores information that determines the genetic traits of a organism. Each molecule of DNA is a chromosome, the number of chromosomes. DNA molecules in the cell depends on the species, and a fruit fly has only 8 chromosomes in each cell, but humans have 46 chromosomes per cell, and some species of plants can have over 1,000 chromosomes per cell. Normally, the DNA is spread throughout the nucleus in loosely coated mass called called chromatin. In chromatin, individual chromates cannot be distinguished. When the cell prepares to reproduce itself, each chromosome in the bundle into a tightly coiled structure that can be seen under a microscope.
Very good. All right, so this is a chromosome. This is the X chromosome, and you get these from your parents. All right, and in there is DNA. That's why you get DNA from your parents, and you look if like your parents. You look like your parents. All right, we're gonna skip these.
I continue.
Yeah, I'm gonna have you keep reading. All right, start with plant cells.
Plant cell. Stiff and sturdy. Besides the three main parts of the cell, a plant cell has a sturdy protected cell wall that surrounds the cell membrane. The cell wall is a support structure made of cellulose, a polysaccharide that consists of a long chain of glucose molecules. Cellulose makes plant stems and other parts stiff and firm while still allowing a degree of flexibility. The cell walls of woody plants are also possess lignin, another non-living substance that adds stiffness to the wall of the cell in the tree and roots. Here based us. Plants such as strawberry and dandelions do not have the link in their cells wall but relying in the internal fluid process to keeping their cell rigid. Photosynthesis factories. The cell of the green plant chromoplast of the originalist that perform photosynthesis chromoplasts look like the tiny granule floating in the cytoplasm. Powerful microscopes show that chromoplast contains water-like structure in the chlorophyll. The green pigments needed for photosynthesis chromoplast are found in the near every area of a plant, from its stem and leaves to unripe fruit. Cellular store sheets. Because plants produce large amount of food and other substances, their cells must be stored. Place large vacuoles house food material, fluids, and minerals. Within a cell, each plant cell usually has one or two large vacuoles. A mature plant cell may have only one large vacuole that take up most of the cell's interior. Animals cells and human cells also have vacuoles, but because they need less storage place, they usually have several small vacuoles instead of one or two large ones.
Very good. And
I continue.
I think that's it. All right, so we have 2 cells. Humans only have 46 cells, while others might have more, okay? So now what you guys have to do is read 11.2, 11.3, and 11.4, but you only have to do 11.2 and 11.4 section review, okay? Any questions?
No.